What is executive presence, and how can you develop your executive presence? We're going to discuss that topic in today's episode. Hey, Rich. So last time we talked about you hosting your first LinkedIn Live webinar, man. I know you said it went well, but we are going to talk about that webinar exactly today and actually use the topic that you discussed around executive presence. So first of all, how was that event truly?
Yes, yeah, it was great. Chaitra Vedullapalli, she's the president and co-founder of Women in Cloud. Such amazing talent. Learned a lot of information from her and her experience on executive presence and leadership styles.
Yeah. I mean, again, it was a very successful one. It's one of our first of many alumni sessions and things that we're doing, which is very interesting, right? I mean, can you tell us a bit more about the alumni or why this is kicking off?
Yeah, so the alumni actually sponsored the event, but what Chaitra brought to that was the executive presence through the growth of through trust, right? So basically, very similar to what we're mirroring in today's episode, right? So all based on trust and that executive presence and how to portray that and what all that entails.
I like how it all aligns of what we're doing, and it wasn't even planned. Like when I saw you do that, I'm like, oh my gosh, we've been talking about that. It's perfect timing. So I thought, you know what better way than for us to use some of those clips, and then we'll talk more about it and elaborate in today's episode.
Yeah, I'm excited. So we'll talk a little bit about her definition of executive presence, how trust plays into that, and what those key ingredients for executive presence are.
Fantastic. All right. Well, with that, let's go ahead and watch the first clip. So she definitely sets the table of what executive presence is about. So let's go ahead and watch that clip.
Executive presence is really your personal platform and how you show up. When you walk into the room or when you get into the room, people would say, I trust that person. It just comes to your mind. It's like, I feel safe. I feel confident that they will represent me. They have a body language that is very inclusive, or they have a body language that is terror, depending upon the presence. It's really the executive presence can be in favor of you or not in favor. So one is driven by fear, one is driven by love. So you need to know which leadership persona or executive persona you have. So in your mind, as you're thinking about it, think about, the leaders that have a executive persona that's led by fear. That means they can create fear in you. As soon as they enter the room, you're shivering, you cannot speak, your throat starts to choking. And they are leaders. When they walk in, you just have a big smile on your face and your heart opens up. You want to talk to them. You want to engage with them. So that's kind of is a presence. It's automatically, intuitively, your body starts to react very easily. So that's a presence at the end of the day. So when you walk in, you should feel good or you should not feel good. That gives you level 1 understanding.
Wow. So right off the bat, I love that she started this, that whole introduction of executive presence about really saying that, when we think of executive presence nowadays, we tend to go towards how our own interpretation of what that could be based on our experience, right? Going into when somebody enters a room, how do they make us feel? A lot of people nowadays, when we're thinking about this, we're thinking on the positive side, like what she talked about. You can't help but smile. The word gravitas is used quite a bit. But we don't understand that there have been some other experiences around executive presence that haven't been so positive. They still call it executive presence because they either have the title or they have the position or whatever. But when they come in the room, it's the opposite. It's, you start to shiver and so. I find that very fascinating because a lot of training that we're talking about and we talk is always about how can I have executive presence on the positive end, but we don't realize it can have the opposite of side of the spectrum. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So to elaborate on that, I used to, in an old organization, let me preface this, in an old organization that I worked in, there was an executive that would come into the room and you could just kind of feel the tension as soon as he walked in. And when that would happen, the room would fall silent, and obviously he would give his spiel, and then after that he would go kind of in a round robin, firing off questions and having to answer those. So you could tell you already can imagine that setting and that scene and what that felt like.
Yeah, and one of the things, we encourage you, and we encourage you to watch the full episode or the full interview. What I like about what she does in her interview as well is she loves movies as well, and she uses movies to learn about communication, about how to lead, and everything like that. And when you look at old Hollywood and old movies, how executives were seen as like a villain, or that person walking in with like their lawyers behind them or a bunch of people behind them, and everybody just got real stiff, right? And that's how I grew up. That's how I thought corporate America was, But then again, you were starting to see that shift where it's not the case anymore, especially when now the different generations and all that. It's more about like, yeah, when you come in, it's like you feel, I don't know, the word trust got thrown out. You feel like you can trust that person, that they're not there to bark orders, point fingers, and do what you just said. And a lot of us probably have had that experience in the past, though, where either we've seen it, like your case. Same thing with me. I had somebody, and again, I want to preface this. Executive presence doesn't mean that you have to be an executive, because as we talked about with leadership is not a title. Leadership is not a position, right? It's earned. It's something that you work through, right, and you improve on. Same thing with executive presence. Even though you use that term, it's basically this presence that you have where you look confident, where you're okay, where you're comfortable with authority. All these elements, and that's what we're talking about today, right? Is it's like there are team individuals who come in a room and we just can't help but, I don't know, listen to, right? Or can't help but like want to talk to them and things like that. Those are just elements that are just intangible things, but they're just comfortable in their own skin, man. They're just comfortable in their own space. Do you have any examples of anybody like that you know?
Yeah, actually, as a matter of fact, my current boss, she's like that as well. As soon as she enters, into any meetings, it's like you feel that warmth in the room, and people are just naturally wanting to go above and beyond. Especially, I see it a lot on my team. I see it just in the relationships that she has and the people that she works with. That everybody's just a little more warm-hearted and a little more giving when it lends to that sort of leadership style. So.
Right on. Yeah, it's to create an environment of collaboration, of people speaking up, of feeling comfortable. There's so many things. So just thinking about, my examples as well. I mean, like I said, a lot of executives and a lot of leaders here at Insight, I've seen examples of that, where when they enter a room, they don't suck energy. They actually give energy. And it's this positive energy, right? The opposite, where they do take energy, you can, that whole example, man, you start to just like, you don't even want to breathe. It's like you're facing a T-Rex, right? Like, don't move. Maybe they won't see you, right? It's like, it's not a good feeling. But the other one's just like, oh my gosh, they're here. It's amazing. And you just feel like you can approach them. I love that. It's so, then again, they're just so comfortable. They're calm, collective. And they all have their own unique personalities. So I can think of several leaders with executive presence that all have their different personalities, introverts, extroverts, folks who are charismatic, some who are just very stoic and very quiet, but super observant, very in tune. So a lot of good stuff to unpack there. But I think with that, it's like it starts in the beginning, though, right? You can't just come in and say, "I have executive presence. Listen to me. I'm important." There's the first layer, right? And she talks about that in the interview. Well, what's that first beginning layer that we need to work on?
Yeah, so it's a lot about how you carry yourself. It's almost, so you do certain things and you have to be consistent with it, right? But it's almost the illustration, how everybody perceives you as that executive presence, right? You do the things you're saying, you come to bat, you follow through with your actions and all of that, kind of blended in.
It's going back to what we talked in the last episodes, right? It's so funny. It's that you have to build that trust with them. And not just say, trust me, you have to earn it, right? And she talks about that next, is how executive presence really starts like any successful team is trust. So let's see what she has to say about trust, and then we'll unpack it.
When we think about a high trust relationship, most of the people think it's just like, I believe in you. And it's a very emotional word. And when someone says, I don't trust you, then there is a breakdown in the relationship. As I talked about early on, I was in a conversation with my manager, and I was managing most of the pricing and licensing decisions. And everyone would sit with me and talk to me about it. But because I was very collaborative and transparent, realized that I was sharing some information I shouldn't. So she pulled me aside and said, listen, I want to have a high trust relationship with you. Can we make sure that you are committed? And at that time, I didn't realize what she was talking about, right? So I went on a journey on embarking on that discovery, saying what will make a high trust relationship. In a way, it's a formula. So it allows you to identify, do I have a high trust relationship or I don't? So the formula or a mental model is called as Rock of Trust. So the acronym stands for ROCC. R stands for reliability. Can I rely on the person? Can I trust that person? Or if I talk to you about something, I will get it done. And do you do it? Or you're just talking instead of doing? Can people rely on you? That was the first element. Second is open and honesty. How open and honest you are without getting into the space of gossip or space of destroying someone's reputation. How do you be authentic in being an open and honest so that you can make the decisions moving forward? The third one is competency. Do you have the competency to do that work with mastery? Very, very important. That means if I am given an opportunity to get something done, do I have the mastery to execute? If I don't, can I bring the person who can execute that? And the last one is compassion. Compassion in the sense, do I have compassion by putting myself in the other person's shoes? So Richard, if I'm working on your team, I will be always thinking it's how can I serve you in the right way so that I'm looking from your point of view.
There was a lot to unpack there, but I like that very last statement that she said, how can I serve you? We talked about this before on a number of different episodes. Leadership is a servant duty, right? And once you bring that to the table, it kind of lends itself to all these other things that we've been talking about. Trust, right? Bringing back trust, leading with a more empathetic style. People tend to trust you when you're a bit more empathetic. It's not like that executive that walks in the room and then it gets really tense and you shy up and you don't want to say anything. When you have that trust and that level of empathy, your employees, your coworkers just kind of tend to gravitate and, will reach out to you and probably be more receptive to whatever you're working on.
Yeah, no, you took that one out of, I was going to say that one as well. That one totally resonated with me. It's so key, right? That it's like we don't realize that. But I like what you also said too. Now, and here I want to clarify, right? When we think about, we've been talking about teams, right? And that's the first layer, right? Executive presence, you have to have that within your team. But then there's that next layer. Do you have that same level of authority, respect? People look up to you outside of your team. And that is where I feel that, it's easy to start within your team. It's that, if you have a high trust team relationship with your team, things are, 100% working well. The next thing though is, can you also have do the same with everybody, other teams within your organization, people you haven't met, right? They don't know who you are. But the thing about it is, like, there are things that you can do to demonstrate that. And as simple as this, when you think about somebody who has executive presence and first time you meet them, as soon as they walk into a room, they're not the ones saying, hey, how's it going? I'm the most important person in the room. Here's my name 10, or I have a corner office. I'm so-and-so, throwing titles, throwing stuff. No, they come in and they go and introduce themselves to everybody in the room. Not just the people that they know. They don't walk towards, and this is the thing, right? We're so comfortable in going and sitting next to our team. And I mean, I'll be honest, I'm the first to do that because I know who they are. I know them. I build trust with them. And again, I'm in my comfort zone. But it's also have executive presence. They can get out of their comfort zone and build new relationships, introduce themselves, walking, hey, how you doing? My name is Z. What's your name? How, getting to know people and walking across right away. You're going, who is this person? That they're going out of their way to introduce themselves. That I feel like is the next level, right? It's like, wow. And even though you haven't built that high trust relationship, you're starting the foundations of trust.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And just to your going back to what you were saying with your comfortability, you gravitate towards your team, but getting out of your comfort zone, that's really kind of in the makings of that executive presence. You have to, it's not just dealing with the people that it's trying to involve everybody and having that bigger picture.
Yeah, and I love that you said it's the beginning of that. I love that because it is those building blocks, right? If you're able to start feeling more comfortable being uncomfortable and getting to know, they're like, this individual is different than everybody else. Everybody did their own thing, sat with their group of teammates, of friends, or whoever. This person's like out of their way. Hey, how you doing? And then they smile. They're open. The first foundation of trust. And then of course you talked about the acronym of ROCK, which is pretty cool. There's different models and things you can measure. Here's just another one, right? And I love that it's all about, first of all, it's you're reliable. Can I rely on you to do things? Are you going to do what you promise to say? Are you open? Are you open to have discussions, conversations, open in that sense? I think those are two amazing first steps. Is, hey, you're going to do what you say you're going to do, and you're going to be open and transparent and upfront with me. And then the rest, what are the other ones that stood out to you on those?
Yeah,
on the ROCK?
Yeah. So for ROCK, so for the last two, the caring and compassion, leading with empathy, having that ability to mold into that style if you need to. She also talks a little bit about having different styles at different times. So we can visit that as well. Sometimes there will be instances, I'm sure, where you'll have to go into a war room, and it's it's not all fun. Nobody's having fun in that instance, and you kind of have to be a little firmer and say, hey, we're here to handle business. Like let's get on task. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then the last one is competency, right? Do you have that level of competency? Can you carry out the job? Can you do what is being asked? Can you carry out the task? Can you either push it to the next level or keep things going?
Yeah. And I want to clarify that too, because when we think of competency, what is like you have the skills, the ability, right? But don't get that confused. It's not about do you know it all, right? Competence is meaning you're competent in leading. You're competent in being in a position of authority, making direction, making decisions, but also knowing that you're not the smartest person in the room. And I think that goes back to open and honest.
Sure.
I'm open and honest. Hey, I've never done anything like this. Let me hear what you have to say. Let me hear your ideas. How are we going to solve this together? But ultimately, they're going to look at you and be like, what do we do then? It's like, okay, well, based on what I heard, this is the direction we're going to take unless anybody says otherwise, whatever, right? So competency, again, just to clarify, doesn't mean that you know it all, that you have all the answers. It means that you're competent in leading, competent in being confident, and understanding what's going on. Also being competent in knowing that you don't know it all as well, right? So I want to clarify that as well, because you're not the smart, and that you're not the smartest person in the room. It's the one that think they know it all that lose that credibility.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you said that, because even though you may not know every answer to every question, or and you've identified, I'm not the smartest person in the room, I know that, but you find the right people to be able to carry out those tasks, to be able to do the job, to get to that next level, to accomplish whatever you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, so. Yeah, you surround yourself with the right people, the people that can execute and do the things, collaborate, work. I mean, that's just I feel like it's a well-oiled machine or a nice orchestra. Just everybody's doing their part, and it's just you're making beautiful music together. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, and again, that's just one model. There's several I talked about before, whether it's that the model of the credibility tree, where you're somebody with integrity, with good intent, you're capable, and of course do you deliver results. So again, there's so many out there, but just understand: are you giving somebody that we can trust, and building that high trust relationship? So again, executive presence, we're gonna. There's a lot more to discuss there, but there's just some of those foundations around that. We then asked her another question, right? Or actually, she followed up because she brought up: are you leading with fear, or leading with love, right, or empathy? And I think that's super important to distinguish. So let's go into that and unpack that, and we'll talk about that some more.
The second thing is when you are thinking about how you build your presence, you also need to define that, am I leading with fear or am I leading with love or empathy? So that is your determination factor, because then your persona, how you show up, that all comes to you. In the current 21st century, most of the leaders need to lead with empathy. Otherwise, they're all alone, because the Gen X and the Gen Zs, they love leaders who are leading with empathy and love, and they care about the planet, the people, and also profit for the company. They do care about that. So your requirement is to be the leader that can be led with empathy. And I know all the insight leaders have this a persona with leading with love and empathy, which is phenomenal.
Yeah. So again, she again talked about the distinguish of the two different types, right? And yeah, it doesn't translate well anymore like it used to. You know, back then that's what it was expected. That's the way business was run. That's all they knew. But as times have changed, and you know, she brought up Gen X, Gen Z. I think she forgot millennials because I'm like, hey, what about me? I'm a millennial. We have things, our expectations, and what we look at and what we respect and what we you know, see as credible has changed a lot. You know, I don't think nowadays, but nobody's going to want to work for an organization or a leader that leads with fear. You know?
Yeah. And to your point, I mean, even, you know, Chaitra says it, you know, they want to work for somebody who cares about the, you know, planet, about their employees, about, you know, different things and not just bottom line, right? And that's such an important thing to going back to building trust, to being able to expand upon that, to, you know, just really having your team like trust you and leading and essentially keeping it, you know, without that, having that, creating that atmosphere with tension and, you know, where people can really come to you and talk to you and tell you, you know, what's going on in the organization. I know we mentioned that, you know, it's such an important piece to be able to have somebody be able to come up to you and say, hey, look, I think these might be some issues, you know, within the organization, and not have either your hand slapped or you feel like, oh man, I better never say that again because I don't want to feel this way. I don't want my leader to treat me this way. And it's such an important thing to actually develop that trust and build that and maintain that.
Yeah, so. No, it's a good call out. I think it's one of those things where, you know, if you go into a meeting with whoever that individual is, that leader, and you just check yourself and how you feel going into that meeting. If you're going in and you're, you know, say you're worried about your presentation or giving updates, and it's natural, right? Like you want to do a good job, you want to impress. But if you go into that meeting fearful of that individual, right, of what they're going to say, how they're going to make you feel, then that's not a good sign, right? And how would you know that though, as a leader, right? How would you find that out? Well, here's a tip, right? Here's one of the things you want to be mindful of, is that you have to be aware of your surroundings. When you go into your meeting next time, pay attention to see how your team or the people around are reacting, right? Sometimes we're just clueless. You know, we go in, and that's probably why you need to work on it. Maybe you're leading by fear a little bit if you just walk in and you're all about business. Stoic, straight face. Where is this report? Your tone is, you know, you're showing passion, but you're showing passion towards results, numbers, right? Bottom line. Then again, that's just a sign you're probably leading with fear, because that's telling your team that that's all you care about. All you care is about the numbers. All you care is about getting this done, and everybody else is not important. But if you go in and you're paying attention and you come in and you smile, you notice people smile when you come in, they give you eye contact, they stand up and they look excited that you're there. They again, you just can see the reaction. So pay attention to the reactions that you're getting. And if you haven't done that, start doing that, because that's going to give you, that's a big indicator of how you're coming across. Another thing too is that, are you taking the time to really connect with individuals and seeing people as individuals instead of a whole, right? Like that example I said earlier, you enter a room, you introduce yourself. Virtual world, right? Are you there early? And as people are coming in, are you talking to people? You know, typically what I see happen is somebody arrives early, they put themselves up on camera, they turn off their mic, and they're just sitting there waiting for somebody to say something. Not a sign of executive presence, right? Which is okay if that's what you're doing now. But if you want to work on that, hey, get comfortable, turn on your video, welcome people. Hey, good morning, Rich. Thanks for joining. Yeah, we're not going to start yet, but we'll just wait for everybody to join, interact with them, get to know them, find out where they're at, what do they do, start that small talk, and as more start coming, make sure that you acknowledge everyone. The last thing you want to do, right, is somebody join, you acknowledge a few, and you miss the rest. Again, going back to that example, you're going to gravitate towards people you know. You have to get to know new people. right? So those are just, again, some little elements there that you can start working on today to build that executive presence. Well, what are some other things that you've noticed regarding? So again, we talked about that high trust and leading by fear, leading by love. What are some things that you've seen from leaders and stuff that are positive things that you notice makes them different than the rest?
Yeah, so kind of back to you mentioning, you take the time to interact with everyone, right, and care about them on a personal level. And I think people are much more receptive to that, especially nowadays, because it shows that you're not only caring about the business aspect, but you care about me as an individual. And I know, just from my personal standpoint, I know that makes me want to work harder for that individual. It makes me want to give 110%. Do the best of my abilities, just kind of go above and beyond. So if anytime they're asking for help with, X, Y, or Z, of course, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'll help you any day, and it just lends itself to that. So
yeah, it's like going back to your example of, how can I help or how can I serve?
Sure.
Right? It's like someone needs help. Yeah, let me help out whatever I can. It's like not thinking that other tasks, people, circumstances are below you. Right. That's not a good sign. It's like, oh, that's, I'm at this level. I don't do that anymore. It's like, no, sure, I'll be happy to. What you need some coffee? Yeah, I can get that. Oh, I'm heading there right now. I'll get that for you. Those little gestures again builds a high trust team that you're not above anybody or anything. Right. So a couple of their tips there. Other advice, right? When it comes to, we talked about that you don't know everything. You're not the smartest person in the room. You're constantly, someone who has executive presence, and things that you can start doing to develop your executive presence is be comfortable with feedback, not only giving it, but also seeking it out, receiving it. If you're constantly doing that, it tells others that you are always learning and you're always looking to improve yourself as well, and that you're not perfect. By doing that, that opens the door for the rest and others around you to also share and give and receive feedback. That is an amazing way. Not only, again, you're also building a high trust team, but you people look up to you and respect you for that. And they're going to be more open and receptive to hear your feedback, right? In the beginning, it could be like, oh gosh, what did I do wrong? But now it's like, you know what? Every time Rich asks for my feedback, it's actually making me better. And he cares about my development, my presentations, my whatever feedback you're giving me is because you're trying to make me a better person. And more importantly, I love what Chaitra said as well is, even just asking people, I want to build a high trust relationship with you. Hey, I want to help you become the best at presentations. I want to help you in developing the skill. And if you're open, I would love to give you feedback to get you there. Boom. Oh my gosh, please, help me, right? Yeah. So that's another tip, right? Is, be open, give feedback, but receive it abundantly as well.
Sure. Yeah. And, back to that point of, just having that blanket statement, right? Coming to the table with that and being open with that. Like, I'm here to help you. This is what my intentions are X. My intentions are Y. That right there will build all the trust in the world just in that statement alone. And then following through with those actions and all the many other steps that we've discussed,
Yeah, no, and I love that last part about the intentions, man. It's as simple as saying that really just stops the, assuming, why did they say that? What is their intent? You just state it, right. Now you have to follow through. Yeah. So I know we're coming to the end. I know Chaitra had a final thoughts, right? So let's see what she had to say, and then we'll wrap up our session.
Now, final thoughts. Ensure that your executive presence is a leadership platform that you're building. It is your platform. You have to invest time, energy, resources to really build it. Start taking micro action and every day work on it. As simple as writing a gratitude statement for your own self and giving yourself a credit that you're working in the right journey. Very important. Coming to the world with a very positive state of mind is important. Third is join the Women in Cloud community. We would love to host you. We want to celebrate you. We want you to be part of the dinners. We want you to be part of the Hollywood movie experiences, part of the educational CXO series that we are putting, and also be part of these conversations where we can work together as a unit and build a very high trust relationship between organizations so you all get to grow together, because there's a lot of work in the world that needs to be solved for, and each and every one of your superpower is very important to leave the world in a better place.
So one big takeaway I have from that immediately that just kind of jumped right out at me when she said this was, take the micro actions. They could be tiny. Something is, having a gratitude journal, writing down something, expressing your gratitude on the daily. Something as small as that. Just take the action. That small action will build upon itself over time, over months, over weeks, what have you. And, that will really make a difference. That'll show you that you're going in the right direction, that you're doing this for a purpose, you're in leadership, or you're wanting to aspire to become a leader for all the right reasons.
Well said, man. Start taking action, micro actions, little steps. If it's, gratitude journal, if it's working on, introducing yourself to new people, getting yourself out of those, get yourself a little bit uncomfortable in those situations where it's like, I'm going to go ahead and start doing these steps. A lot of action items, a lot of things we discussed. So it really just comes down to just start doing it. Get in there. Start executing and working on that executive presence.
Yeah. So today we talked about what executive presence is, how trust plays into executive presence, and what those key ingredients are. See, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think, again, I can't wait. Start working on your executive presence today.
And if you'd like to hear more on Chaitra's leadership style and executive presence, be sure to visit insight.com and search Insight Alumni page to find out more information there.